Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Rye, School Board Chair. The administrative, informal, and workshop session of this meeting of the School Board of the City of Virginia Beach is hereby convened at 3:34 p.m. on this 22nd day of February 2022. Pursuant to the School Board's 21-22 reopening plan adopted August 10th and the school board vote on August 24th of this year regarding health protocols for school board meetings, physical distancing will be used in chambers as a health mitigation strategy. Members of the public will also be able to observe the school board meeting through live streaming on vbschools.com, broadcast on VBTV channel 47, and on Zoom. It is the board's protocol to break at 5:30 to prepare for the formal session that begins at 6 o'clock. And at 5:30, we will conclude unless the board votes to continue to no later than 5:45 to allow time to prepare for the formal session at 6 o'clock. So with that, we welcome the public joining us today, and we also have special guests here who will be introduced by staff very shortly. But first, Madam Clerk, would you please announce those school board members in attendance?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Present in School Board Chambers is Chairwoman Rye, Vice Chair Melnick, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Felton, Ms. Franklin, Ms. Holtz, Ms. Hughes, Ms. Manning, Ms. Owens, Ms. Riggs, and Ms. Weems.
Thank you. All right, school board administrative matters and reports. Anyone have anything to share? And this is anything that's not committee related. All right, with that, we will proceed. And our first session of the day is Project Search. And we welcome Dr. Ronnie Myers-Daub to introduce our guests. Thank you.
Hi. Good evening, Chairwoman Rye, Vice Chair Melnick, school board members, and Dr. Spence. I'm Ronnie Myers-Daub, Executive Director of Programs for Exceptional Children. And tonight I am accompanied by staff and several guests, including some of our students. And we are going to share information with you about Project Search. At this time, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Jan Varney, who is one of the transition instructional specialists for OPEC. She has been the heart of planning the implementation of Project Search for this school year. So she's done a lot of hard work with this project. So I'm glad that she gets to share this information with you.
Thank you and welcome, Ms. Varney.
Thank you, thank you. I just have to tell you all, it is a true pleasure to my heart to be here to present this program to you, and I'm excited to tell you all about the great things that are happening with Project Search. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what Project Search is. And it is a program that it's very unique. It's collaborative, it's multi-agency, it's business-led, and right now it is a one-year employment prep program for students with significant disabilities. The program emphasizes total workplace immersion and real-life work experiences. It facilitates a seamless combination of classroom instruction in employability and independent living skills, career exploration, and hands-on training through actual worksite rotations. The program is designed to help young people with significant disabilities make successful transitions to productive post-secondary adult life. So if you think about it, we are very, very blessed to have Virginia Beach City Public Schools here for our students. It is a fantastic school district. My children came up through it. I've been blessed to be able to teach here. We have so many resources and so many awesome things available to our students. But what happens when that yellow school bus doesn't come on September of the year that your student is no longer with Virginia Beach City Public Schools? And that is a big question for our parents who have children with significant learning disabilities. So this program kind of helps with that transition. Project Search was started in 1996 by Erin Riley, who is the director of Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. And it's a hospital that serves children with developmental disabilities. And as she was working in her job, she looked around at the people that were also working at the hospital, and she said, you know, I don't see represented in the workforce here the people that we serve. And so she got together with a CTE teacher in the district around her, and they came up with this program. She saw a need to fill high turnover, entry-level positions that involve complex and systematic tasks within her department, things like stocking supply cabinets, checking medication expiration dates, preparing the beds in NICU areas for neonatal departments. And so if you think about, those are all really, really important tasks. And you think about the amount of time that goes into preparing all of those things in a hospital. And so she thought, well, if we can prepare students to do some of these complex repetitive tasks, it could free up some of our other staff, as well as make a great workforce for the community. So currently there are over 600 Project Search sites in 42 states in the United States. They're also in Ireland, Scotland, and Canada. They have programs in hospitals, medical centers, hotels, country clubs, colleges, government buildings, military installations, senior living facilities, and even in Florida in the zoo. So you can see there's great opportunity for growth for these kinds of programs. And I am very happy to say that although there are programs on military installations, we are the first Project Search program on a master jet base. And we'll have someone from NAS Oceana to speak with you here in a minute, so kudos to that. The goal for each of our student interns is competitive employment. And by competitive employment, I mean an opportunity to work with their non-disabled peers in a job that allows them to make minimum wage or better, in jobs that are related to their personal preferences, their skills, and their strengths. And we also look for jobs that are not just seasonal in nature. For example, we don't want students to go work at Lynn Haven Mall for the Christmas rush. Although we can't say that that will never happen, the goal is ongoing, long-term competitive employment. And if you think about all of you in this room and what employment has brought to your life, how you relate to your colleagues, the friendships that you've formed through work, the things, your sense of pride that you get from going to work every day and doing a good job. That's the same for all people. We all need that sense of belonging, and we all need that ability to go forth and be productive and earn a living and make money to buy the things that we want. So as I said, this is a very collaborative effort, and if you look up at the screen, you will see the symbols of all the organizations that are involved in Project Search. Of course, Naval Air Station Oceana Project Search is it's collaborative between the school system, DARS, Virginia Department of Ed, VCU, and DIDLake. Like I said before, it is the first program of its kind on a master jet base. So we are really fortunate to make history, even as we serve as an example to other military bases, and while providing services that not only enrich the lives of our interns, but also contributes to the economic well-being of our community. So if you think about the workforce right now, there are statistics out there that say that upwards of 40% of people with disabilities are not employed. So if you think about that in numbers, if you were to count off the number in this room, 4 out of every 10 people wouldn't be employed. That's a big number. That's a huge number. And I think that within Virginia Beach City Public Schools and within our students with disabilities, we have an untapped workforce here waiting to be developed. And programs like Project Search allow us to move those students towards that employability, which enhances our community. So I'm going to introduce you to representatives from all of these departments. First, I'd like to introduce you to our Project Search teacher, Mr. Trent Gabriel.
Thank you, school board members. I am, of course, the school teacher in the classroom, but I do have to say that this is not your typical high school classroom. We really work on those employability skills and, of course, enhance our given skill set with that one goal in mind, which is to hopefully give these intern students a chance to be employed. And, in addition to the classroom instruction, everyone in the classroom, I have some great team members, one of which is here with us. We also have some great job coaches and TAs in there. We are out with those students every day, and you'll hear more about that soon. Thank you.
We also have with us from DIDLIC, which is the Employment Service Organization that partners with us, Miss Crystal Green.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Green. I'm the employment specialist, job coach, skills trainer with Project Search, whatever title you want. And part of my role is not only assisting with teaching of the job skills that will transfer over into employment, but I love to say that every day is a teachable moment. We are working on social skills, all different type of things that come up without being planned. And I love what we do. And then part of my job too, after the program is over, is to assist the interns with finding employment. And it's not just a transition program for only the students. I love to say it's also the family, right? We're helping the family transition right along with their young adult. So nice to meet you guys.
Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce you to Amber Coriati. She is from NAS Oceana.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Senior Chief Amber Coriati. I've been in the Navy about 17 and a half years now, stationed on board Naval Air Station, my second tour here. My primary job is air traffic control. I was blessed to be asked to assist with Project Search. My role for Project Search is the business liaison. So basically, I am the intermediate person between the Project Search team and the base and the different department heads. A couple things, being our first year has been a huge success, and in my opinion, and for the base. I've talked to a lot of the different departments that the interns are working at, and some of the best comments that I hear is that they boost the morale with the whole team, whether it be the GEM, the Navy Exchange, any department that they go to, they highly increase the morale in that department. They're also very helpful in getting some tasks done that sometimes we just don't get to. As we know, every job, there's always something that we can't get done, and these interns are helping assist that, and as well as learning stuff. I like to say it's a win-win for all. The departments get assistance, the base gets that extra needed assistance, and they become part of our team, and the interns are learning those skills for that competitive employment. On behalf of Captain Holmes, Captain Junaidy, and Command Master Chief Buford, I'd like to say that we look forward to the continued partnership with the Virginia Beach schools, the interns, the families, with all the different partners that we have for Project Search. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services is also one of our partners, and their representative is not here. VDOE, of course, supports us through the division as a part of the steering company, and VCU provides administrative support to the steering committee. And last but never ever least, of course, we have our families and our interns. And with us today, we have Delaney. Hold on a second. And we have Jabari. And you will be hearing from both of our interns as well as their parents in just a little bit of time. So when we look right around this time every year for Project Search, and I say every year, this is year 2, that we're getting ready to prepare for, we have a mass communication where we send out information about the parent information night. And then the students have an application process. So the eligibility for these students is that they need to be military dependent or military connected somehow, and they need to be students with intellectual disabilities. They need to be entering in their last year of high school or their last year of eligibility for special education services. They are working towards an applied studies diploma, and we are also looking for potential interns who have a desire to work and that can work with intermittent supervision. So the selection process is a lengthy one. It starts with an application, and I think the application is about 13 pages. The students then go through a panel interview, which consists of 6 adults. And anytime you're sitting in front of a panel of 6 adults, it can be a little intimidating. So it takes a lot of bravery on the part of the interns to even apply and get to this portion of the process. And then following the interviews, we have a 1 or 2 day skills assessment where the students come to us and they go through a variety of stations, and we assess what kinds of skills they have, where their strengths are, and what their needs are. Once the program year begins, which is in September, because we do follow the Virginia Beach City Public Schools school year, the first few weeks of the program are, they're focused on intern orientation, getting them used to the base, getting them used to walking around, because the students do walk from the classroom on base to their jobs. I do have to say that when we started this year, it was taking our interns about 45 minutes to get from the classroom to their job site. I'm very, very proud to say now that it takes 15 minutes and they do it independently. So if you look at stamina and the ability to navigate a very large area, what to do if you get lost, these are all skills that the students are learning on base. And then through the series of the targeted internships, there are 3 throughout the course of the school year. Interns acquire competitive, marketable, and transferable skills to help them apply to positions that are related to their interests. These internships are unpaid work experience. The interns are required to interact with their supervisors, and by that I mean be able to take direction, be able to take feedback, be able to learn how to ask for help, how to advocate for themselves if they need something or they don't understand something. What do you do when you call in sick? You don't just not show up. You don't rely on mom and dad to take care of the fact that you're not going to be at work, because then your boss isn't going to know. So we work really, really hard on these transferable skills that are oftentimes those soft skills that we can teach an intern or teach someone to do the work, but oftentimes folks get fired because of those soft skills. You know, what do you do when you walk into the cafeteria and someone has brought donuts? Do you put your hands on all of them? What do you do if you have a grievance with a coworker? How do you manage that? What do you do if you're angry about a customer that just came in? How do you manage that? Those are real life situations, transferable skills that can go from across workplaces. So once the interns master their core skills, additional skills are layered in to constantly be making it a more complex environment for the interns. And then following each of the internships, we have what's called a reflection and direction meeting. And that's the time when the intern comes together with their family and the on-site team, and they give a presentation about their internship, the skills that they've learned, the things that they've done. And you'll actually see evidence of that in a few minutes when our interns come up and speak with you about it. Currently at Oceana, we have internships at the Navy Gateway Inns and Suites. We have internships at the Navy Exchange within the different departments, lawn and garden, soft lines, provisions, salon and barbershop. We have internship sites at the MWR Outdoor Rec, at the Fitness Center, and at the Jet Mart. And we are always, always working to expand those internship sites to meet the needs and the desires of our interns. So I'm going to have Mr. Gabriel come up and talk to you about the students' daily schedule.
Okay, so as you can see, this is our schedule for the day.
Yes, and sir, if we can ask you with the mics,
Oh.
so we can hear you better, just to,
Is that better? Okay, apologies. So as you can see, this is our schedule for the day. We have about an hour classroom instruction in the morning, where we go over all those skills that we had talked about. We have our team cheer, which you will hear very soon. And then before and after lunch, that's when the interns report to their site. And at the end of the day, we have some feedback and reflection. I do want to say, though, that those time periods before and after lunch, that is our busy day. That is our busy work. And that is the time when, as a teacher, I find most satisfying and rewarding. I'm close to 30 years, and I keep thinking I'm going to retire. But, you know, there are moments when I witness interns doing some wonderful things that you and I take for granted. You know, I mean, just most recently, for example, I had an intern, you know, was very happy to tell me that she had directed a customer to customer service because she couldn't answer a question. Very simple, but for her, that took a long time to do and to finally get it. And those are the things that we want to teach those students, those interns, again, with the goal in mind of employability. So, next slide, please. So very quickly, this is our current class. Starting at the top left, we have Kimberly Bowden, Kristen Boone, Alana Cobb from Kellam High School, Jabari Ellsworth, Teresa Nichols from Kempsville High School. Bottom left, Marcus Gray from Lansdowne, thank you. Lansdowne High School, Trey Fort from Cox, Delaney Cummings from First Colonial, and Christopher Green from Princess Anne. So, next slide. And now we have our student presentations. Every internship we have what's called a reflection and direction meeting. So this is just a brief overview of what the intern did at their internship. And so first we have Ms. Delaney Cummings. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is
Hello.
Emily Cummins.
We're so glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Emily Cummins. I'm a Punch Search intern for Ozias Oceana. And I'm from Bush Colonial, where I've been graduated. And that's it.
Well, we're so happy to hear that. First Colonial is close to where I live. You've had
Oh,
a good-
really? I didn't know that. Okay. Some of my favorite things, I like dancing. I love watching college football. And I love Jonas Brothers. My first internship was in Next Lawn Garden, and that was me. I was carrying soils, and I was tending the plants. My job duties was assisting coworkers and customers, light cleaning, stocking items on shelves. My favorite job skill, fancy organizing products. My supervisors and co-workers, supervisor, Mr. Joseph. Another supervisor is Nikki and Sonia. My co-worker, Matthew, and co-worker, Nicholas. My favorite thing about Project Search, I love working instead of being in a classroom. And they keep for this thing. Any questions?
Oh, that was wonderful. Colleagues, any question for our young lady? Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And let me introduce you to my mom and dad, Sarah and John.
Hi, I'm Sarah Cummings. I don't have any slides, sorry. But, and I'm also not a performer. I don't know why JJ isn't talking, but we have been so thrilled with this program. Delaney has been a student at 3 different high schools in her career and 2 different middle schools, including one with Dr. Saltner. Great Neck Middle was one of her middle schools. We can really speak very highly of about Virginia Beach City Public Schools, having lived in Seattle and San Diego, where she also went to high school. But there has truly been no program like this one for her, as far as developing her as a person and developing us as a family. Like Crystal said, we really had a lot of trepidation, I think, as most parents do when school is coming to an end, but especially as parents of special needs children. It's just a different world without the structure, without the guidance, without the support. And remarkably, that guidance and support is out there in the real world. And now we've had an opportunity to become exposed to that and become partners with many of those players. And we wouldn't have had that opportunity if we hadn't had this Project Search experience. So now we are feeling really, actually fabulous about her going out and navigating the private sector. Even if we had to move again with the military, which is possible, we feel pretty confident she'd be able to obtain a job at another base. This partnership with Oceana in particular has been near and dear to our heart, as JJ was stationed there for many years, but we knew that it was a safe environment. She's had an opportunity, too, to navigate the public transportation because she's not riding the school bus every day. She is using an app on her phone to monitor the HRT paratransit rides and schedule them, and pay for them. So we do feel like we've really engaged in this transition period as well, and are very thankful for it. Her ability to advocate for herself and be independent has just grown leaps and bounds. We can't say enough about it. So thank you.
Thank you for that powerful testimony.
Delaney, I had something I wanted to say to you. So I like everything to be just so. And that picture of you with product facing was amazing. And now I'm going to go to the base into the garden center and see all of the products that you have perfectly faced. And good for you. It looked beautiful.
Thank you, Miss Kim.
Okay.
I tend to straighten shelves too, yes.
Well, I'm glad to hear I'm among friends, because after doing this with the students, I find myself walking through the stores and just kind of, is that in line with small, medium, and large? What's the expiration date on this? So the next person we'd like to hear from is Jabari, another one of our Magnificent Nine interns.
Hello, Jabari. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, my name is Jabari Ellsworth. I'm from Kinsville High School, where I graduated. I'm an intern at Project Search at NS Oceana. Some of my favorite things: watching Little Gray Fergie, Little Red Truck Tunes, Kenji the Toy Train. Norwegian. My first internship was the NWR Outdoor Rec. That was a green tractor I was pretend driving. That was during my birthday. My job responsibilities are cleaning the lobby, preparing cameras for rental, using good customer service, assisting my coworker Ray. My favorite job skills: working as a team, using tools, connecting the water hose to the camper. My supervisor and co-worker mentors. My supervisor is Mr. Rob and Jonathan. My co-workers are Mr. Chandler, Boss Brandon, Mr. Ray, and Miss Jessie, of course. My favorite thing about Project Search: being a team leader for Group Huddle. Want to hear it? Who are we?
Project Search.
Where are we?
Oceana.
Why are we here?
To learn job skills.
What's our team name?
Team Hornets.
Well, Jabari, you look like you've been one busy young man.
Oh, hang on. Thanks for listening. Any questions?
You covered it so well that I think.
But like Delaney, I thank you for keeping things neat and clean. I love that so much. I saw you sweeping and making sure those campers are clean for the next person. I'm sure some of them messy when they come back. Yeah. He doesn't want to rat anybody out, I guess. Good work.
My parents. Yeah. This is my dad. Dad, come over here.
Welcome, Dad.
Hello. Greetings to you all. How can I top that?
so many great things to say about Project Search. I'm one of those parents I'm the overprotector. My job is to protect, provide, and guide for my children and my family. And when they first came to me with the idea, I was like, no, I don't think so. And they're going to a base, so you would think it's pretty secure, but it wasn't secure enough for me because for me, it's you have a child and you try to treat them no different than anyone else, but indirectly you do because they're different, but they're different in their own unique way. So the key for me was to just protect them, keep them from doing things. And once I found out everything they started doing, I'm like, wait a minute, you got so many years of work around the house to catch up on that I blocked you from. Like, you made a bed? Oh, you don't make your bed at home? You sweep? You don't sweep at home? You use the knife? Oh, really? Okay. So having Project Search gave me the ability to let my guard down. I'm a lot more comfortable now in reference to where he is and what they've done with the program because you get to the realization, like, okay, well, after high school, what? You got 12 years, but with these children, you get a couple of extra years. So, you're passive and time keeps going and going, and then it hits you. Now we have to deal with it. So it's like, what's next? But with programs like Project Search, they give parents like myself the ability to say, okay, well, I see what I've been blocking or hiding my son from, and it opens them up to be able to do more because just like us, we want to feel needed, we want to work, they want to do the same things we do. So kudos to Project Search, and hopefully it'll be around for years to come.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, and kudos to you parents for joining along in this process and having confidence in us to do things that will allow your children to grow. So it is a pleasure every day that you send them to us. So everyone, that is Project Search. I thank you for allowing us to come and speak with you about this program. It is amazing. And if you all want to come and see it in action, I invite you to contact one of us and we will get you on base to see the interns working and see how the program works.
Thank you.
And we'll be here if you have any questions.
I do. I just want to ask a couple of questions. I'm interested in your two things, your panel that you spoke of and some of what Ms. Crystal Green spoke about in developing the parent and the students. How much interaction do you have with the parents? What other things to keep them informed, to keep them involved, and to make them vested? I love what Mr. Elwood said. So how did you get him to that point?
So we start the process by having the parent information night in January or February before we even send out applications. And that gives parents the opportunity to come and hear the presentation, ask questions, get to know us as a staff a little bit, and just kind of get those questions answered. What is this program? What is it all about? What can I expect? When does it start? When does it end? Who's in charge of my child when they're there? And then from there, parents are allowed to come to the student interviews with the students. Some choose to come, some choose not to. And then we also have a parent orientation family kickoff night in August is what we had it this year. And all of the parents are invited to come along with the interns. We have representatives from all the agencies that are collaborating on this project. We kind of go through a rundown of the whole day, what it's going to look like, what supplies your student needs. These are the reflection and direction dates. This is the calendar, and we just are available and answer questions and do the presentation. And then Ms. Green, Crystal Green, has been phenomenal in setting up text messages with all of our parents, and I think that, from the very beginning, we have group chat texts, and we send the parents pictures of their students at work. We keep in contact with what's going on during the course of the day. I don't know, Crystal, you want to come up and speak about that?
It's interesting. Out of all of the parents, I'm glad that these two came. Before the program starts, once the students are officially selected and we know who's coming through, I have to do an intake with my company, so I usually go out and meet all the interns at their homes over the summer. And it was really interesting when I met with Mr. Jabari. I was in the interview seat. Mr. Ellsworth was drilling me, asking me all type of questions. Why should I trust you with my son? And I will tell you, I kind of got that from the whole group. And one of the biggest things is I get it. I'm a parent as well. And what I was able to let him know, and as the rest of the parents as well, is we are now the extension of you, right? So we want this just as bad as you want it for your student. The difference is they don't have mom and dad going to a job and talking. So we advocate for them as well. And then so involving the parents throughout the whole day-to-day interaction, and we're continuously building on that. So it started off by group messages that includes myself, the teacher, the intern, and the parents. And we're really enforcing and encouraging to do that natural communication as if it would be the real day that they go to work. What would that look like? Are you going to go inside the job and get them when it's time to get off? Or you want your son or daughter to text you and say, I'm off work, I'll be out in a minute. Those type of things. So that's really how the communication goes. And as the program goes on, I like to say it's like taking the training wheels off. We give them the helmet, the new pads, and all that stuff, but we soon back off and let them ride off in the sunset, and we're there if they need some catching. But I guess that's the best way. Hopefully I answered your question.
You did. Thank you so much. And I meant to say in the beginning that I am so impressed with what you're doing. It gives me a sense of pride to know that we have this in our area. And you are doing what I always speak about, having all, WALL, capital ALL, all our students to be successful and be able to get back to society. And you're doing that. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Jabari, and thank you, Miss Delaney for coming to share with us. I am impressed with you. Keep up the good work. I see you in the future, and you're doing great things in the future. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing
Thank you guys
this.
so much. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So I'm glad that Mrs. Felton used the words sense of pride and just all around, just the pride that I feel in all of this. I was a proud employee of Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I proudly serve on the school board because I love this division so much, and the things that we do and what we offer. And honestly, I'm so proud of the collaboration with NAS Oceana, because this is not the only thing that we do with NAS Oceana, and to know that they're a part of our team is really heartwarming. And Senior Chief, one of the most stressful jobs ever anywhere, air traffic control. And that you are part of this also just warms my heart. And hopefully this offers you the de-stress that you should feel after. Never mind, I see Jack giving me the eye. I don't want to say anything about Navy pilots, but hey, kudos to you. Thank you, Senior Chief. Okay.
Okay. And with that, we turn to Mrs. Weems and then Mrs. Manning.
Thank you. A couple questions. So the intern sites are obviously all on base, and they will always be on base, even when you expand those sites out.
Yes, for this particular program, NAS Oceana Project Search, all the internship sites are on base.
Okay. And then when you say military connected, how far can the connection be? Because I'm sure we'll get a lot of interest in this program. But what is the connection?
Well, we do our very level best to look for the connections. So if your grandparents served, if someone who's living in the same home as you but's not related to you served or is serving, someone who is retired military, someone if you are related to someone who passed away but served in the military and passed away during their service. So we try to make as many connections as we can.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And then what do you think the max size of the program is, or how fast can you grow without growing too fast? Like you've got the Magnificent Nine here, which we love. Delaney and Jabari, part of the Magnificent Nine. So are we going to have a Super 16 or what? Are we gonna do?
Well, you know, the desire of my heart would be for there to be many of these programs throughout Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I definitely think that we have the student population to support it, but it does take a teacher on site with the students, and it does take a TA and a job coach and the things that, you know, the funding that goes along with a classroom. So right now we have 9 interns, and I will tell you that Mr. Gabriel and Miss Crystal, and we ran short-staffed for a little bit of time this year, ran and did a phenomenal job getting this program up and running with short staff. So, you know, the staffing to student ratio is really, really important. We wouldn't want to have 16 kids with 1 teacher and 1 TA, because then you lose the whole benefit of having that specialized attention with the interns.
Right, right. Well, I really, yeah.
So if y'all want to fund more.
Yeah, I mean, we are
Bring
so,
it.
Obviously, we are all so impressed, as my colleagues have said. I really like the transitioning piece that helps with the family. I could really relate to Jabari's dad because I've got a family member who is intellectually disabled, and his parents protected him so much that when they passed along and he was in his 60s, we had to do this when he was in his 60s. And my husband and I often thought, gosh, if they would have had a program, because we're like, oh my goodness, he can go to the store, he can cook, he can, you know, but they were protecting them so much and didn't know and didn't have resources and the support that that he was unable to grow, and we're like, he's got such a great work ethic, and now he's working, he's living independently, but he had to wait till he got in his 60s and both his parents died, you know. So I'm just so glad for the parents' sake that this gives you such a ease and a just a sigh of relief for the whole family. And again, Jabari and Delaney, y'all did an awesome job. Keep it up. Way to go. We're proud of you.
One of the really great things about this program is we look for what the interns can do. Yes, we need to know what their weaknesses are, but the goal is what can you do and what do you need in this environment to be successful that we can give you so that you can be independently successful. So, you know, when you get to spend your day looking at things that people can do, that's a pretty amazing, that's the best seat in the house.
Go ahead, Mrs. Manning.
Thank you so much, and I think this might be my favorite program in Virginia Beach now. Having been the guardian of my uncle that had special needs. I'm sorry, he passed away a couple years ago. I understand the importance of having those job skills, and like Ms. Weems said, he didn't get those until he was in his 40s. But continued for decades working, and he learned those job skills, and he gained so much from that, so much joy in his life. Okay, so I have questions if I can get them out. So you said that the age for it, it's their last year. So in Virginia Beach, they can be 21.
Yes.
Is it their last year of school? So basically, is it 21 unless their parents have decided that they're going to end their school year at 19? Or, okay.
So what we try to focus with the parents is that, you know, we really want this to be the last year that your child is eligible for services, or the last year that y'all are choosing to participate in services from the school district. Because this is such an immersive program in the workplace, we really want the students to be able to take those skills and then apply them to a job that the job coach is going to help them get. And if they were to go back to the classroom setting after having that immersive year, you know, you're not necessarily using that same skill set, although some of them you are, but we really like to emphasize that this should really be your child's last year, because we're looking forward to a job and the independence that comes with that.
Okay, and there's a classroom portion, so because I noticed that the students were from all different schools, high school. Where is the classroom portion? Is that at Oceana also?
Yes, the classroom
Okay.
is on base, and the
Okay.
student interns report directly to the base every day. They don't go to their school and then get bused here. they come directly to the base. So some of them are being brought on base by their parents. Some are using the HRT public transportation. So right from the very first day, you're going to the base, you're not going to the school.
Okay, and kudos to you. I don't think I can use the HRT on my own, so great job.
Mr. Ensler, yes, please.
Oh, please come up to the podium, sir.
I wanted to speak about the HRT. So Jabari wants to drive, but because of his vision, you know, and they got cars that drive themselves now, so maybe one day, but he probably will never be able to drive. So the HRT came along, and I'm like, yeah, nah. We just moved to Suffolk. So he's migrating from Pewsville over in Suffolk all the way to Oceana, and he's doing it on his own. So needless to say, my heart dropped when I found out that, okay, he's going to have to catch the bus. Like, well, who is he with? Who is he going with? Every morning, I can count on a ding on my phone that says who he's riding with, where he's at, what time he's gotten there. So all of these things are things that either A, he could already do, or they taught him how to do it. And I just sheltered him so much that I didn't know he was capable of doing it.
Yeah.
So just those things, that's just one more thing that Project Search has opened my eyes to see, and they're capable. So, all right, I'm done.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And then I just had one more comment. If there's any possibility of expanding this program, I want to be a part of helping to make that happen. So let's do it.
Okay, we're going to wrap up with Mrs. Hughes, and Mrs. Melnick has a final comment.
So I don't really have a question. I just kind of had a comment. This really is impressive, and I'm so happy that we have this available. I do have a child with special needs, and one with, one without. But I think a lot of parents now, because of the world we live in, we probably shelter our children a little bit more than we should, and even more so when we have children with special needs. But there is great dignity in work, and there's a lot of pride that comes with making your own decisions and frankly, making bad decisions sometimes and learning from them. And so I'm really grateful that this program is out there to help these children be able to achieve that sense of pride and sense of dignity within themselves. Thank you.
Well, thank you to you all for helping fund it and agreeing to it. Because
Yeah.
you know, it's not something that I just said, hey, I'm going to do this. It had to be the support of everybody here and everybody at all these agencies. So thank you to you all for this as well.
And Dr. Spence, not to take any light off of Project Search, but what do we do? I know we have students that are out in the workforce. Not saying I go to TJ Maxx every day, but I do see students at TJ Maxx, and so.
Yeah, no, it's right. So this is an example of workforce transitions. I think Dr. Myers-Dobb can talk about a little bit briefly about. We do. I mean, every student with IEP has a transition plan, and often that involves transition into the workforce. And we work with a number of partners in the city. And I think Ronnie, you could probably speak to that.
Yes, all of our high schools have different sites around the community that they work with. Prior to the pandemic, we had much of that happening at each high school. Obviously, over the last couple years, that subsided. We are building it back up. But I was at Cox High School the other day, and the class just got back from Why Not. So we've got it happening again. It's just a matter of the businesses welcoming our students back. But we have, schools have their own businesses in their school, the coffee shops. So they also have that built in, that they often participate in that prior to going out into the community.
So I'll just end it with 3 words: family, school, community. And this is a perfect example of a partnership made in heaven. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now ready for our COVID-19 update. And welcome Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairwoman Rye, Vice Chair Milne, members of the board. Dr. Spence, I learned something tonight. I think Ms. Melnick harbors something against naval aviators.
No, sir. No, sir.
As a reminder, I'm a naval flight officer.
I can back you up.
Naval aviator here.
No, sir.
So JJ is one of my great friends from the Navy. We talk about Navy family, and I cannot underscore that enough. Those are great friends from the Navy that we continue to have. So good to see him here tonight. All right, Dr. Patati is on with us via Zoom and will be available to take your questions at the end of the brief. This is the most recent slide from Virginia Department of Health showing community transmission in Virginia Beach. We are continuing to see a downward trend in community transmission. Virginia Beach is still in the high category for a level of transmission with 121.9 new cases per 100,000 in the last 7 days and a percent positivity of 10.4%. At this rate, we expect to be out of the high category by the next time we talk to you. Next to those numbers in gray, you can see what was reported at the last school board meeting. We see a similar trend in schools. And this is kind of along the lines of a question, Ms. Weems, that you had been kind of trying to ask or kind of focusing on. But EO2 went into effect on January 24th. And we've had about 4 weeks with having students with the ability to be able to opt out of masks through their parents. And further was during a time when detailed contact tracing was not possible and quarantines were much less frequent than they were in the pre-holiday period. And even with those conditions, we've seen a rapid decline in positive cases, and we have a low number of clusters within our classrooms. As you're aware, Senate Bill 739 was signed into law last week. Also included on the slide is the relevant language from EO2. I'm going to give you a moment to read it. You can see they're very similar. Both are focused on parent choice and do not direct specific action by school boards. The biggest difference is highlighted in red. Senate Bill 739 references while on school property, while EO2 said in effect at the school or educational program. Last week, we also saw a movement related to the Department of Labor and Industry, Virginia Emergency Temporary Standard for Infectious Disease Prevention for employers and employees. The Codes Board adopted the recommendation, which means that there is now a 30-day comment period. Nothing changes during the comment period. Before I share our recommendations, these are the current prevention layers that were adopted by the school board following EO2. And it includes the effects of the Department of Labor and Industry Emergency Temporary Standard. So currently, masks are required for everybody in Virginia Beach City Public School buildings while acknowledging EO2 and parents' desire to opt out of masking. And that applies to the school day. The school board also added a requirement for parents to notify the school of their intent to opt their student out. Department of Labor and Industry requires masking for all employees, and all adults are required to wear masks in our buildings with the exception of waivers. So that's the current standard. That's where we are today. And with that as background, here are our recommendations. Based on Senate Bill 739, we recommend masks be optional for students when on school grounds starting Monday, February 28th. We recommend that we do not require schools to collect parental intent. Further, we recommend optional masking for adult visitors starting Monday, February 28th. Based upon the 30-day comment period, we recommend that masks continue to be required for employees until that process is formally concluded. And we know that these are going to be topics of conversation at the end of the brief, and we're going to be happy to take your questions and provide answers. As a reminder, we still have many layers available for our prevention strategy, and they're informed by our professionals at Virginia Beach Department of Public Health. Vaccines are broadly available and strongly encouraged. Parents and staff should use the self-screening tool and stay at home when sick. Masks are strongly encouraged during periods of substantial and high levels of community transmission, and that's where we are right now. Masks are required on school buses by a federal order. KN95 masks are available for staff and students. Our staff already have their KN95 masks. Our students and our school-based staff have them. Our administrative staff and our students will have them, we project, by the end of this week. We physical distance to the maximum extent practicable. We're moving into warmer weather, so we're going to have the opportunity to maximize our outdoor spaces and position windows to increase ventilation in schools. And we continue our coordination with Virginia Beach Department of Public Health. And given the level of risk in our schools, we've shifted from a every day of the work week model to a Monday and Thursday meeting. We continue with our contact tracing, and we're specifically focused on cluster identification and evaluation. And we send home notification letters with students if we do identify a cluster. Starting on February 28th, we have a new opportunity. We're going to be offering voluntary, no-cost PCR testing to staff. And those are going to be in Plaza Annex and Renaissance Academy, Monday through Wednesday from 12:30 to 6:30 p.m. We also offer at-home testing kits for those who are symptomatic. So we send them home if they're symptomatic. Or if they're part of a cluster notification, we give an opportunity for parents to be able to request those at-home test kits as well. So to summarize, we still have many tools in the toolkit, and we continue to see the number of positive cases dropping rapidly in our schools. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Saltner to share several items, including one additional recommendation regarding field trips.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Chairman Rye, Chairwoman Melnick, Dr. Spence, members of the board. I want to begin by sharing with you our layered mitigation strategies regarding field trips. As the number of positive cases decline, both in VBCPS and regionally throughout the state, we continue to look at strategies that we might peel back. The removal of mitigation strategies is done systematically so that the impact of the removal of each can be examined. On this slide, you'll see the field trip mitigation strategy as it progressed from first quarter to current. Beginning March 1, Virginia Beach City Public Schools principals and docile directors will allow field trips at the secondary level to travel beyond the region so long as students travel at this time with no overnight stays. We're still concerned about a child getting too ill to travel home if left overnight. I also want to point out that this peeling back of restrictions was specifically identified for secondary students only, based on the high rates of vaccination seen at middle and high schools, exceeding about 60% for most secondary students. DOSL, as always, will look at exceptions where the instructional value warrants us to reconsider, and we have done so in several instances. No, we continue to look at our strategies, and we anticipate relaxing guidelines further as transmissions decline. Currently, we are planning for relaxing mitigation strategies for our proms and ring dances, which schools were given the green light before Christmas to proceed with scheduling and booking. Back to a chart you've seen before, staffing challenges for daily subs have been minimized significantly due to the increase in the number of subs hired since January 3, significant decrease in staff absences as the Omicron variant transmission levels reach low. In the past 10 days, Virginia Beach City Public Schools has reported on at least 2 occasions no positive cases at all among our staff. In the chart seen here, one can see the declining trend of central support staff needed to reinforce schools with unmanageable absences, and in short, keep schools open 5 days per week. You'll see the exception on February 18th, where staff personal reasons leave is generally high before a 3-day weekend. Our principals granted many of these with prior approval. We continue on a daily basis to monitor these absences. To further support schools with remainder of the year staffing challenges, particularly hard to fill math and special education vacancies, 14 math coaches have been reassigned to support 10 schools. That's 6 full-time. The remaining 8 are job sharing. And another 6 schools in the February, special education is supporting another 6 schools and the February cohort of Virtual Virginia. This will take 15 OPEC and Department of Teaching and Learning special education specialists. Now, like our Central Support Subbing Initiative, when a Central Support member subs, their work remains undone until the evening or the weekend. And I can personally speak to this from my own substituting experience. With the reassignments noted on the table projected, work goes undone. Where full-time math coaches have been reassigned, their work must shift to others in their buildings. And in doing so, we are placing a greater burden on our schools. Those assigned are no doubt, those who have been reassigned are no doubt disappointed, and principals are displeased. They must shift the work to others. The same proves true of our special education staff, and hence the job sharing that you see on this chart. These job sharing central support staff are doing what it takes to keep schools open, and more importantly in this instance, to ensure a strong teacher in every special education classroom. I want you to make no mistake, they will teach, and they will accept the demands of balancing their primary assignment with Department of Teaching and Learning, or OPEC, with the classroom. What I want to really make clear is we are all continuing to push ourselves for our children, and that's what this reassignment is doing. It will certainly be a challenge for Dr. Rogers and a challenge for his folks to strike that balance. I want to share, before we move forward or move on, a little bit about Virtual Virginia. Recall at our last meeting, I shared that 2,957 parents expressed an interest in exploring Virtual Virginia. And I also shared that all families were being contacted and options explained. In the contact by our school counselors proved very critical in parents and students choosing Virginia Beach City Public Schools over Virtual Virginia. Parents often rejected the Virtual Virginia option for a variety of reasons, including limitations on course offerings, unwillingness to leave their special programs, whether it was IB, an academy, or center. Some had displeasure with the hours that the Virtual Virginia or the calendar of Virtual Virginia, and frequently heard from counselors was the parents were not as concerned as transmission levels continued to decline. In short, schools report parents preferred their student remain with their current programs and teachers and peers. And in the end, as you can see from this data, 216 general ed students were registered and will begin class on February 28th. In addition, 21 special education students whose services cannot be provided by Virtual Virginia will also be served by Virginia Beach City Public Schools in our own virtual program for special education students. I also share with you the funding source, and you recall that the division must pay tuition for enrollment in Virtual Virginia, and that in this instance, for these students, it's a total of $310,600. You know that Virginia Beach receives per pupil funding from the state, and these students who are in Virtual Virginia do remain on our rolls. We funded Virtual Virginia through ESSER Corona Relief Funds, Starting semester 2, we will fund with the American Rescue Plan ESSER 3 funds. Those are the points that I wanted to share regarding our staffing capacity, Virtual Virginia, and at this time, Mr. Freeman and I will take any questions which you have.
Thank you, Dr. Saltner. All right, Mrs. Melnick and Mrs. Anderson.
Dr. Saltner, some of our coaches were exempt from returning to the classroom. Those are the ones whose job descriptions are covered by a grant, correct? Is that titled what?
Title I and Title II.
Title II. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. So not everybody was eligible to return.
That is correct.
Just out of curiosity, did people volunteer? Did everybody stepped up and you didn't have to?
And I'm going to ask Dr. Rogers if he'd step up because he took the lead on this.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Rye, Vice Chair Melnick, Dr. Spence, and school board members. So the answer to your question is yes. Unbelievably, the support was overwhelming from those staff wanting to volunteer to see the need, and they did. Yeah, many of them did.
I knew they would.
Yeah.
I knew they would. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Anderson.
My question has to do with school buses and masking on school buses. So we've had several emails from parents who have suggested or basically told us that we're not in compliance, that school buses are not part of the public transportation system. Could you explain, or Ms. Linetti explain, the legal implications of this and why we are continuing to state that school buses still must have masking? Could you explain that further, please? So, for those parents who continue to say that we're not interpreting this right.
It's incorrect. The CDC issued a federal order in conjunction with the federal transportation order. They issued a federal order. The CDC, and that was effective on February 1st of 2021. The CDC has authority under the Public Health Services Act to make determinations involving those matters which can affect throughout the country, coming into the country, throughout the country, or within the state. They included in their definition intrastate transportation. So this was the determination. It met the criteria under the Public Health Services Act to be a disease transmission through viruses. That allows CDC to take jurisdiction over it. CDC did make the determination that within a state or within a state area or a city, that impacted the transportation for within the state, interstate there, that also could affect transportation in and out of the country. So they met the criteria in the Public Health Services Act to take jurisdiction over transportation. So that order does remain in effect. People are misunderstanding under the federal transportation orders versus the CDC's authority under the Public Health Services Act that allowed them to make this determination. So that order does remain in effect. School buses are specifically listed. It was also mentioned in the order why they felt school buses impacted the local transportation, the state transportation. So yes, it does apply to school buses.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hughes and then Mrs. Manning.
So, yeah, I was going to mention the buses also. And I went to the CDC's website to see what their authority was. And their authority is when people are coming into our country, they can detain, medically examine people who they're suspected of having anything communicable. Also, anyone who is arriving by plane or ship, if the pilot or captain believes that there is some reason to believe that anyone on there has something communicable that they need to look at, they don't have the authority to make mandates. I mean, they've been just making mandates, just like their moratorium on evictions. They didn't have any authority to do that either, but everybody just said they did it. They don't have the authority to make mandates, and school buses are not public transportation. You can't just stand on a corner and hail a school bus. I mean, it's a private operation.
Mrs. Hughes, that is incorrect. 42 U.S.C. 264, subsections A through E, explain why under the Public Health Services Act, CDC was granted authority under the Health and Human Services Authority of the Public Health Services Act to imply this. They can, if you look at subsection D, it talks about the fact that when they determine there is a disease that could impact the country, they have the right under that authority. They exercise the right as granted to them under the Health and Human Services Act. So they can do it. They have the authority under intrastate, not just interstate. And it has to do with the contagious nature of the disease that gives them that authority. If they make that finding, which they did make that finding in their order that went into effect on February 1st, 2021. So they do. If you're not familiar with the Public Health Services Act, you may not know what this jurisdiction is. That is where the jurisdiction comes to them for doing that. You're thinking of other situations which they normally do on there, but this is a specific act when they determine there's a communicable disease that can impact the country, and they do have that authority under that act to do it.
Anything else right now? Mrs. Manning?
Okay, so my question is regarding the Department of Labor's, I know that we were under the auspices of their mandate that appears will be going away in a few weeks. But in it, and I don't have it in front of me, but it essentially says it's mandated, but there are exceptions when, if a student can't wear it or if for some reason, but it seems if it's not practicable, essentially is what it had said. And I've gotten some complaints and some concerns from some teachers. One specifically was a teacher to our hearing impaired and deaf students, that she's being required to wear a mask, and she was offered one of the clear, like the plastic, not this shield, but a plastic mask, and it would fog up, and she couldn't breathe through it, so it wouldn't work. And she's had this concern. She's brought it to her administration. I just don't understand why that is a requirement, since it inhibits the ability to teach our deaf and hearing impaired students.
That sounds to me like it's an individual accommodation for that teacher. So without knowing the circumstances, I would have to, I don't know if Cheryl can handle this one or not.
In our office, we have employee relations. Any staff member who would like to seek accommodations, all they have to do is reach out to our office. There's paperwork, obviously, they're required to complete. Depending on what it is they're requesting, sometimes it requires medical information as well. But we often grant various accommodations to staff members. They just need to reach out to our office to employee relations.
It wasn't an issue for her. Like, she can wear a mask, but she can't effectively teach her students while wearing a mask because they need to see her lips. And so.
Now, if I recall, we had at one point talked about the shields, but they did not offer the same.
The shield was not allowed.
Okay.
And there was one that had just like a plastic on it, but it would fog up so you couldn't see her lips. So it's inhibiting her ability to teach her students.
So this falls into a category of, this is something that we want to address from the staff. Can you pass us the information?
Absolutely.
So that we can fully look into it and see what's really going on?
And then just to piggyback, same subject, I was in the grocery store today and someone recognized me. I didn't know who she was, and she wanted to let me know that she quit because she did not feel that she could effectively teach her students who are ESL learners. And so, I'm concerned about students who need to see their teachers' mouths, and they haven't been able to see their teachers' mouths for 2 years now. And I know it's only a few more weeks, but that's a few more weeks that these students are not getting effective teaching from their teachers because of the masks. So I can bring you specific situations that were just recently brought to my attention, but I know that there are probably a whole lot more out there of people who aren't speaking up that I think those situations need to be addressed.
Yes, ma'am. And we just need that information. This is something that we tried to address early on. So, I fully grasp that these things will continue to come back up, and it's a matter of how we get the information. These are the things we want to encourage, the exchange of information, so that we can do the best thing with all of the balance of consideration and risks to go there. So would love to know more about these individual situations. and not only address the individual situations, but apply it more broadly, I think, as you're suggesting.
Yes,
of
yes.
What can be done, what can we learn from this, and apply it more broadly.
Yeah, because these individuals, or this individual, one specifically, did go, through their proper administration to try to address the concern, and it didn't get addressed, so. And they're all being told kind of apparently that you have to wear a mask, no exceptions. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Owens, then Mrs. Melnick and Mrs. Hughes.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to see that we are going to be offering the voluntary PCR testing for students and staff, just to have an additional layer and option. And it means that tests apparently are becoming more available again, which is a good thing. It speaks to where we are kind of positivity-wise. And I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding the at-home test kits. I know that there was a period of time last month where that was not available for people to take home. Do we now have the capacity that anybody who needs one, who's going home sick or symptomatic, students will be allowed to have one? The parent can request it from their school?
So if they have symptoms, they're going to get it when they come home with their note. If they're part of a cluster and they're not symptomatic, that's where the parent will have an opportunity to be able to request to get a one of those at-home test kits to be able to do that. And just for more clarity, that opportunity for PCR testing is really an extension of what the capacity that we had when we were doing the athletic testing.
Mhm.
So now we have an opportunity to be able to take that through the end of the year in the contract that's already in place.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I did have, I guess, some questions, maybe concerns, I don't know, on the central support reassigned staff. I guess, first, can you tell me, out of the central support staff here, how many, like, previously had direct student duties in schools?
All coaches have direct student support via a release model. Either they're coaching teachers or co-teaching with teachers or modeling lessons and activities for teachers. Behavior intervention specialists do similarly in terms of working directly with our teachers as well as with students. Same thing holds true for our teacher specialists and instructional specialists. They serve as a support for teachers to model instruction for students with disabilities, differentiation. They co-teach. They definitely work directly with students and teachers.
Okay. And I know that you said that those duties kind of fall back to the school and they're going to absorb them, obviously not easily, but
Correct.
that each school is figuring out how to absorb those duties and make sure that those services that were being provided to students are still able to be provided?
Yes, as best we can, absolutely. But recognize that because we have removed those services, that the equal amount of services will not be able to be rendered. And the schools are working as hard as they can to make sure that those services the lack of services have been minimized, will be minimized, as they've not started yet. So.
Gotcha. And I know it's not easy to have to look at reassignment or to choose how and for how long and when that's going to happen.
Sure.
Did we have any like central support personnel that didn't already have like direct student responsibilities in schools that could have been considered for reassignment, so that when we reassign, we're not pulling services that are already being provided to students?
Yes, so our special education support services are not directly connected to schools. Math coaches, they are, and they are a function of the Department of Teaching and Learning. So they don't have offices in central support. They are deployed to schools where they are needed most. So yes, we did consider them. Now, relative to coordinators, math coordinators who are licensed to teach those math classes, we have one coordinator. We have two coordinators at the secondary level. We have an instructional specialist. Those persons are licensed to teach, and for the purposes of the need that we have there, we deployed our math coaches first so that our coordinators and instructional specialists can backfill the services that are not being provided from the math coaches who were assigned to the schools. In many instances, when we had conversations with the schools wanted to use their existing math coaches because they know the building, they know the students. It would be the least amount of disruption for those students in those buildings.
Gotcha. And with the behavior intervention specialist, I know that behavior issues and concerns are an ongoing thing after the pandemic, just trying to get everybody reacclimated and lost some in-person socialization time. Pulling the behavior intervention specialists from those duties and having them in classrooms, how comfortable are we that those behavior duties that they were carrying out with the students are going to be able to be absorbed appropriately so that the students are still getting whatever support that they need so that they're not ending up where we're seeing them at the appeals levels?
So that's a really good question. It's one that I need to be thoughtful in how I say how comfortable we are, because all those folks, all the staff that were hired to do those positions have very specialized positions, and they offer a value add support for the schools that are involved. Now, the 3 behavior intervention specialists have been deployed to support classes of students with disabilities, to support that, and they have a very specialized license. I believe those behavior intervention specialists are supporting our ECSE classrooms where the need was the greatest. We do have a total, I think it's 24 behavior intervention specialists, so we have 21, and we'll have to work very closely with those schools to make sure that we're offering support with our existing staff, the additional staff that we have there, as well as look for opportunities for our other staff who are licensed to offer that level of support. But being honest and transparent, principals don't want to lose those staff persons because they offer an extreme value at an area in which we know our students need, especially as it relates to social emotional learning. We have some of our youngest learners exhibiting behaviors that those behavior intervention specialists offer a great value to teachers as well as to students and families.
Okay. And if we have other special education teachers that are hired between now and the end of the school year, is the plan to fill them? I don't know if there is a specific plan. Are we going to fill them and then pull these behavior interventionists back out into the schools? And I know that that's a lot of switching for students who could use that consistency in a teacher.
Sure.
But is the plan to get them out as soon as possible? And if we fill these positions, that we're going to bring them back out to their regular duties, or what's the plan for that?
So I appreciate you asking that question. I know Mrs. Woodhouse is going to come. We took a lot of time to really be thoughtful in terms of who was reassigned and what the need was. And that was working very closely with our building level principals, with DOSL, with DTAL, as well as with human resources, to really be thoughtful in terms of what that transition was. So we do know that the human resources continues to interview and offer, and that it becomes a conversation on what's best for students at that point. So I'll let.
Yes. It is always our intentions to allow these critical positions to be restaffed. The need was there, and that's why those individuals were hired. Our goal in HR is, as we continue to staff vacancies, to have those individuals co-teach, and if the new teacher and the central office staff that's been assigned, or the school-based staff, are feeling that there's enough comfort level to allow that individual to proceed on with some mentorship, then that's exactly what we would do. We have communicated to all of these individuals that their reassignment will be until the end of the school year, because as you can see from the personnel report, as aggressively as we're hiring, unfortunately, we're steadily losing, and we still have, to date, 114 instructional vacancies. Now, we did an all-call last Friday to our retirees. We did a social media push. We did we completed an interview this morning, well, late this afternoon with one of our local news channels to work with our retirees. We already had the Retiree Opportunity Program that we publicized, but, you know, we're doing a true push for our need, and we're showing the flexibility that we have. So it's not just for filling current vacancies on a full or part-time basis, but this is also the time where our schools typically are trying to secure tutors and other support personnel in the building, and there's just a true shortage. So we put it out on Friday. We actually had some formal central office folks reach out to us, so we're excited. But honestly, we need about 100 retirees to reach out to us. So as another plug, we're not just talking about Virginia Beach retirees. We're looking for any in the community, whether you live in Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Norfolk, Suffolk. We want you, so please apply. But the struggle continues to be there. It's a challenge, and so we have communicated so we don't ping pong back and forth. Some of these students have had, you know, various teachers. So we will leave, our intention is to leave them there until the end of the year unless both individuals as well as the school-based administration is feeling confident that those individuals can stand alone through some mentorships.
Thank you. I know the struggle is real, and it's going to be a continued thing, and I know there's just no easy solutions. I obviously don't, as we all don't, want to lose any of these other individuals who have been reassigned because they feel like they are going to be kept in this position that they didn't apply for at the time or whatever. So I appreciate the continued considerations, and I know that it's a continued conversation. I think that mentorship that you're doing with that code training when you do hire somebody will be helpful, hopefully, to make sure our newer teachers coming in are going to feel comfortable and not feel like had something dumped in their lap and then they're out the door. But I really do hope that we're able to do something that we're able to put these employees back in their original positions and that they know that going into the new school year that they're going to be back where they are so that they'll stay with us and we don't lose them too.
Exactly, and we did want to reassure our employees because obviously, you know, that was a question that was asked. We are all here to serve children, and so it was impressive to have volunteers. And again, because hosting these meetings, Dr. Rogers took the lead, but, you know, we all can be empathetic to an individual who is basically told that the position you currently have is going to change for the remainder of the year and, you know, with a couple of weeks' notice. So we're very impressed. But one of the things we emphasized at the meeting was it's just for this year, because you are absolutely correct. This is a talent pool that we cannot afford to lose, because every time we have a shortage, if our staff keeps thinking that basically we're going to pull them from their current duties, given the impression that what they do is not important, is not a good thing, and we cannot afford to lose these individuals. And so I'm appreciative that you brought that up, and I want to confirm that here tonight, that it is only for this school year, the remainder of the school year.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming that. I think it's important for them to hear. We know the same way we're plugging, that every district is plugging, and so people our staff have options. We want them to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're looking to wrap up. We have Mrs. Hughes.
No, I took myself out for time.
So I looked up 42 USC 264, and this section D is not very long, but it essentially says the same thing that I said earlier, and this was on the CDC's website. It says apprehension and examination of persons reasonably believed to be infected. The regulations prescribed under this section may provide for the apprehension and examination of any individual reasonably believed to be infected with a communicable disease in a qualifying stage and to be moving or about to move from state to another state, or to be a probable source of infection to individuals who, while infected with such disease in a qualifying stage, will be moving from state to another state. Such regulations provide that if upon examination any such individual is found to be infected, he may be detained for such time and in such manner as may be reasonably necessary. It goes on to define what a state is. It just says that it includes Washington DC, but also in this section, it says that the person who's in charge of making and enforcing such regulations is the Surgeon General with the approval of the Secretary. Nothing in here says that the CDC makes regulations.
The CDC, the Public Health Services Act was amended in 2001 and 2002 after 9/11. It allowed the Health and Human Services designated to the CDC the right to enforce on their behalf and the Surgeon General. There's other laws that came through. And I can show you those at another time, but that law, the authority to make decisions about quarantine and isolation was given through the Health and Human Services Director on behalf of the Surgeon General to the CDC. There were a series of laws and amendments that have come out in the last 20 years dealing with that. If you look at the order from the CDC, they specifically state that they have made the determination that any form of transportation where groups of people are together have the impact that includes intercity. Specifically, school buses and school transportation were listed as the ability to impact other forms of transportation in the communities that would then go to interstate. That was a requirement that they had to make under the law having to do with the Public Health Services Act. It is in the CDC order where they made that determination. Therefore, based on that determination, CDC determined that any type of transportation where groups of people were together on it would not be able to meet the requirements to maintain the necessary spacing, and therefore it impacted the interstate and international traffic. So that's the CDC's determination in their order.
It also says nothing in here is to be construed as superseding state law
Actually,
or
take a
federal
look
law.
at E. It says the federal preemption statute. The section E preempts any state law, the following section.
So I'm curious why you're citing this, and then when I read this, you said we should actually be referring to something else, but you haven't provided us with that.
Yeah. If I may offer a suggestion, just because we want to get in the strategic plan, if you both can continue this conversation outside of the meeting, because
I just thought it was important. I don't think we need to exert this sort of control over children anymore, or at all.
but I'm sure Mrs. Linetti will
My
remain.
clarification for you, there are both financial and criminal violations for violating the CDC's orders in here. That would be my caution. At this point, I don't think we can make that determination on our own, because that is and I will say, all the other school attorneys I've talked to and looking at the national level, we all agree that this order still remains in place. So I believe you still need to comply with this order. If someone wants to challenge that, we can talk about that.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Saltner, just 30 seconds. The biggest takeaway that I see for our families, the biggest change in terms of their weekly schooling is just the extracurriculars after school, that now correct, that was highlighted for us while on school property. So, just so we leave with that clear.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So going back to the slide, so yes, for students, it's now when on property. So the current condition, when I started the brief to you tonight, was that after-school activities still requires a mask, obviously during athletic events. So this is any time on student property for those students. And we also recommended that we include the adults in that as well.
So that would be to me, the most significant change from 2 weeks ago for families. The rest is really just business as usual as I see this.
So that is a change. So number one, that students in the after-school activities would not be required to wear a mask. And then it's a change for the adults to not have to wear masks as well.
All right, just wanted to leave with that clarity. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
So welcome, Dr. Bannicky. Compass to 2025.
Thank you. Get situated. Well, good afternoon, Chairwoman Rye, Vice Chairwoman Melnick, members of the school board, and Dr. Spence. I'm here to provide an update on the division's work related to our strategic framework, Compass to 2025. In our time together, I'd like to share the Compass to 2025 navigational markers from 2020-2021 with you. I'll be sharing the results overall and for data elements where results are available for the various student groups. I'll be sharing those that evidence a difference of 5 or more percentage points. Examining markers by student group is an important part of highlighting areas that require additional attention to ensure all our students are performing to their maximum potential, have equitable access to opportunities, and feel a sense of belonging in our schools. In addition to reviewing the navigational markers, I'll share an update on our strategic priorities for the current school year and how we're working toward continuous improvement with respect to the navigational markers. As a reminder, what we refer to as navigational markers are high-level indicators aligned to each of the goals in our strategic framework, and they were developed as part of the strategic planning process used to create Compass to 2025 and involved a variety of stakeholders as reflected on this slide. In July of 2020, I introduced the markers to the school board as part of your retreat, and the data I'll be sharing is from the 2020-2021 school year, the first year of implementation of Compass to 2025. We recognize that the 2020-2021 school year was not a typical year because of the impact of the pandemic on how we operated as a school division and the constraints experienced. Despite this, we believe these measures are important for gauging our progress under our current strategic framework. Our first goal area is educational excellence, and what we see is that 70% of students in grades 3 through 9 were reading on grade level by the end of the 2020-2021 school year. An examination by student group revealed wide variability across student groups, as evidenced by the data displayed on this slide. The data displayed is for grades 3 through 9. When examining the results separately for grades 3, 6, and 9, a similar pattern of results were observed. To put the reading on grade level results in context, I have displayed the percentage of students reading on grade level for grades 3, 6, and 9 from the year prior to the pandemic, 2018-19, along with the percentages for the 2020-2021 school year. As you can see, the largest drop was at the third grade level with a difference of 6 percentage points. When we examine the differences in reading on grade level between these 2 years by student group, we see that overall, small decreases were observed except at grade 3, and the groups demonstrating the largest decreases were African American, multiracial, and economically disadvantaged students with a 10 percentage point decrease, and Hispanic students with a 7 percentage point decrease. It should be noted that we have identified SOL performance as a navigational marker for Goal 1, but are not reporting the results for the 2020-2021 school year because of the impact the pandemic had on participation rates. We have decided that when we report SOL passing rates in the next iteration of the navigational markers, we will also include state-level results for comparison purposes. One of the navigational markers focuses on the percentage of secondary students enrolling in and successfully completing rigorous coursework, and for the 2020-2021 school year, the percentage was 64%. However, there were large differences among our student groups as reflected on this slide. Several of our navigational markers capture student perceptions of their learning, such as the percentage reporting proficiency in critical thinking and problem solving, important components of our graduate profile. Overall, 89% or more of all students reported proficiency in these areas, but results did vary by student, racial, ethnic groups. In both instances, the student group with the lowest percentages was Hispanic students, and the group with the highest percentages were Asian students. You may notice that there is a marker with no data currently reported. Students successfully completing an exhibition of learning or signature project. This is currently occurring in pockets across the school division as we have not yet scaled this work, but we do not want to lose sight of it as the work continues under Compass to 2025. The final marker for Goal 1 is the on-time graduation rate, which was 95% for the 2020-2021 school year, which is the highest it's been since the state started reporting the OTG, or on-time graduation rate. There were differences observed across student groups, with the OTG ranging from 92% for African American students to 97% for Asian students. Goal 2 in our framework focuses on student well-being and includes measures of school climate, social-emotional learning, attendance, and participation in clubs and community service. When we asked students, parents, and staff about their school or workplace environment, we found that more than 90% of students, parents, and staff reported that their school or workplace was safe and welcoming. Lower percentages of students and staff reported that their school or workplace was inclusive. In addition, 81% of students reported a sense of belonging to their school. There were differences by student group in perceptions of the extent to which their school was inclusive and they belonged in their school. In both cases, the lowest percentages of agreement were observed for Hispanic students and the highest percentage were observed for Asian students. The navigational markers also include data from the spring 2021 administration of the Social Emotional Learning Survey. I previously shared the overall results of the survey with the school board at your July retreat. An examination of the results by student group revealed that for the competency of self-management, a lower percentage of Hispanic students expressed agreement relative to Asian students. For the competency area of relationship skills and social awareness, a lower percentage of African American students expressed agreement relative to Asian students. Another marker for Goal 2 is the percentage of students with a 90% or higher attendance rate. For the 2020-2021 school year, 89% of students met this mark. There were differences observed when examining data by student group, with percentages ranging from 82% for African American students, economically disadvantaged students, and students with disabilities to 96% for Asian students. The percentage of students who reported participating in extracurricular activities or clubs or engaging in community service was about half of what it was the year prior to the pandemic. For the 2020-2021 school year, there was more variability across student groups with respect to participation in clubs and activities, with 30% of Hispanic students reporting that they participated in these kinds of activities relative to the 40% observed for Asian students. Goal 3 focuses on student ownership of learning and includes perceptions of support provided for academic and career planning, goal setting, and engagement in learning, along with outcome measures such as industry certifications, college career and civic readiness, and college enrollment rates. With respect to support for the ACP or academic career planning process, approximately 80% of students and parents agreed that it helps students make informed decisions. Percentages of agreement range from 77% for multiracial students to 82% for African American students. Overall, 84% of students reported that they engaged in goal setting. Percentages of agreement to this item ranged from 81% for Hispanic students to 87% for Asian and African American students. Overall, 89% of students reported that they were engaged in their learning, and percentages of agreement to this item ranged from 87% for Hispanic students to 92% for Asian students. Overall, 81% of students from the 2021 on-time graduation cohort graduated with industry certifications. Examining results by student group revealed a great deal of variability among the groups. The navigational markers also include information related to an accreditation indicator developed by the state designed to assess students' college, career, and civic readiness. The indicator defines readiness as completing advanced coursework, specifically AP or IB courses, or earning a CTE credential and completing a CTE program, or engaging in work-based learning experience, or engaging in service learning. Based on this definition, overall 74% of students from the 2021 on-time graduation cohort demonstrated college, career, and civic readiness. Examining results by student group revealed a great deal of variability among the groups. In 2020-2021, 56% of students from the class of 2020 enrolled in a 2 or 4-year college 1 year after graduation. This was a 2% decrease compared to the class of 2019. Examining results by student group revealed a great deal of variability among the groups. The fourth goal of Compass to 2025 focused on hiring and supporting an exemplary diversified workforce. One of our measures looks at the comparison between the demographics of our student population and the demographics of our instructional staff and administrators. Research suggests that students of color who have at least one teacher of color may do better on tests and are less likely to have disciplinary issues. Research also suggests that Caucasian students show improved problem-solving, critical thinking, and creativity when they have diverse teachers. Looking at the data, we see that relative to our student population, larger percentages of our instructional staff and administrators are Caucasian. When looking at student group data, the smallest difference observed was between the percentage of African American students and African American administrators. The navigational markers include ranking information for teacher salary and health benefit packages and compares us to 6 surrounding school divisions. VBCPS teacher salary for new hires ranks number 1. When comparing the rankings from 2020, 2021 to the prior year, the largest drop in rank was for teachers with 10 years of experience, where we previously ranked number 3, but ranked number 5 in 2020, 2021. Our health benefits package rankings improved for employee deductible and family plan deductible. Both were previously ranked at number 7. 90% or more of staff reported positive perceptions of professional learning and job satisfaction. Goal 4 also includes a measure of teacher retention provided by the Department of Human Resources. The number represents the percentage of teachers as of October 1st who remain as teachers through the end of the school year. And for the 2020-2021 school year, the teacher retention rate was 90%. The final navigational marker for Goal 4 focuses on the percentage of staff who have advanced degrees or who have earned national board certification. And for the 2020-2021 school year, that value was 61%. Goal 5 focuses on mutually supportive partnerships and includes indicators assessing awareness of programming and resources for families, satisfaction with division offerings, the number and nature of partnerships, satisfaction with partnerships, and the percentage of students engaging in work-based or service learning experiences. 78% of families indicated they were aware of events, programs, and services provided for them to support students. Of the parents indicating that they participated in division-sponsored events or programs, 90% expressed satisfaction. In addition to gathering the number of partnerships for the 2020-2021 school year, which exceeded 1,100 partnerships, the Office of Family and Community Engagement also had partners indicate the type of support provided, and as you can see, the partnerships provided support in a wide variety of areas aligned to our graduate profile and strategic goals. When schools and their partners were asked to indicate whether they were satisfied with the relationships, more than 90% of partners and schools expressed satisfaction. The final marker for Goal 5 looks specifically at work-based learning and service learning, components of the larger college career and civic readiness indicator, as a way of demonstrating connections to partners supporting these types of experience for students. During the 2020-2021 school year, 15% of graduates from the 2021 on-time graduation cohort engaged in a work-based or service learning experience. Results by student group are also displayed on this slide, and it should be noted that for most of the school year, the pandemic prevented students from being sent out to work locations. We believe work-based and service learning experiences are an invaluable opportunity for students and critical for helping them to be future ready. The final goal in our framework focused on organizational effectiveness and efficiency. Indicators include accreditation data, satisfaction with communication and assistance provided by central office, as well as several operational targets focused on building inspections, energy consumption, food services, and financial stewardship. The accreditation data reported on the navigational markers are based on data from the 2018-2019 school year because ratings were waived during the 2 ensuing years of the pandemic. More than 80% of school-based and non-school-based staff expressed satisfaction with the communication and assistance provided by central office. In addition, we met all of the identified operational targets for Goal 6 as indicated by the green check marks on this slide, with the exception of the monthly food services revenue expense targets. The food services target was impacted by schools operating virtually during the first several months of the 2020-2021 school year because revenues based on participation and fewer meals were distributed during this time. Now that we have our first round of navigational markers for Compass to 2025, the plan is to share these results with multiple working groups, such as the Administrative Educational Equity Planning Committee and Compass Collaborative, to inform planning efforts. We will also post the markers and explanatory information on the Compass to 2025 website available on vbschools.com. And we also have a dedicated intranet site we refer to as the School Data Portfolio that will be redesigned to reflect these new markers and serve as a place for schools to view school-specific results. With that as a look back to how we did our first year of measuring the markers, and during a global pandemic, the natural question might be, well, what are we doing about it? And to answer this question, I would like to provide you with some updates on the strategic priorities we've been working on in 2021-2022. As a reminder, in July of this past year, I shared with the board the Compass to 2025 Strategic Action Agenda for 2021-2022. The agenda calls out the priorities for schools for the year and was organized around these 3 big areas: educational equity, integrated systems of support, and future-ready students. On the following slides, I'll provide a brief update for each area to address work since the beginning of the year. The Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion continues to offer professional learning and resources to division staff to support equitable and inclusive learning environments, including an essential professional learning session at the Leadership Conference focused on reversing underachievement through a pedagogy of confidence, collaborating with the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children to deliver a session for principals and assistant principals at the fall citywide meeting focused on understanding and supporting inclusive practices, opportunities for teachers to earn badges related to culturally responsive practices, and a recent invitation for teachers to participate in the Virginia Department of Education Virginia Cultural Competency Microcredential Pilot. As you are aware, the division's equity assessment was completed this fall, and we're following through on our commitments to expand participation in our educational equity efforts by restructuring the Equity Council, forming the Administrative Educational Equity Planning Committee, and engaging in listening sessions. The listening sessions are one of several approaches to expanding stakeholder participation to inform the development of the division's equity plan. I'm looking forward to working with Dr. Parrott and the Administrative Educational Equity Planning Committee to develop the plan. The work related to integrated systems of support is essential for addressing the academic and social-emotional needs of our students, particularly as we've experienced the pandemic. Literacy, particularly at the early grades, is a critical area of focus. Essential learning sessions for all classroom teachers and administrators have focused on using literacy data to respond through small group instruction and accelerate learning. Language arts curriculum resources continue to be updated to align to the latest research and division needs. Resources developed by the Department of Teaching and Learning and utilized by building coaches have helped increase understanding of what high-quality instruction for all students, Tier 1 instruction, entails, and how it's different from Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports. Schools have also received training to support school teams in using the student response team process. Resources to support this process have been updated as part of the training, including an updated manual and forms. To support schools in the decision-making process as it relates to providing supports to students, a data tool referred to as Unified Insights has been rolled out to select central office staff. This tool provides access to a wide variety of data, such as enrollment, assessments, attendance, behavior. Work is well underway to validate the data and provide definitions to make the information intuitive for users. The work of the Mental Health Task Force continues through this year as work groups are collaborating to address the recommendations that emerged from this group last year. Under the leadership of the division's Social Emotional Learning Implementation Team, or CELIT team, the VBCPS SEL framework has been expanded to include definitions and skills for each competency that tightly align to our graduate profile. Communication tools have also been developed and published to help people understand what SEL is and how it benefits students. The team also developed and shared a resource referred to as the SEL Learning Activation Guide that provides a curated list of resources for helping school staff and central support teams learn more about integrating SEL into their work. Also, to support the integration of SEL into the curriculum, members of the team engaged in a listening tour with teachers in the division to gather their input. The division's trauma-sensitive work group, a work group of the larger CELIT team, has partnered with the Trauma-Sensitive Virginia Tiered Systems of Support training team to offer a 5-part professional learning series. The work group will receive ongoing coaching from the VTSS team on systemic and sustainable efforts for trauma-sensitive supports in VBCPS. The final priority area focuses on developing future-ready students. Some key actions to support this work include hiring a coordinator to support the high school redesign implementation efforts and hiring a work-based learning specialist who is working to make sure these types of experiences are possible for schools by creating systems and IT solutions to support our partnerships. The work of implementing high school redesign is distributed across work teams composed of school staff, and these teams have been working on action plans and timelines to ensure we continue to make progress. This year, we decided to leverage an opportunity provided by the state, referred to as the Virginia is for Learners Innovation Network, or VALIN, to receive coaching and peer collaboration with other districts to support the development of a portfolio system. Part of this work entails developing a tool to evaluate the quality of performance-based assessments, and part of the work focuses on the what and how of a portfolio system. The school board's recent action related to flexible scheduling options at the high school level will also go a long way in helping the division provide students with a variety of learning experiences and opportunities to develop future-ready skills. And finally, the division's K-12 academic and career planning scope and sequence document was reviewed and updated by a work group of central office and school-based professionals, and high school principals have been briefed monthly on what to look for in their buildings with respect to the ACP process for students. Throughout the course of this year, middle schools are implementing 5 ACP advisory lessons utilizing an online tool, Major Clarity. This tool is designed to promote active student engagement and exploration to to promote career readiness for post-secondary success. Recognizing that the work I've highlighted represents just the tip of the iceberg, I wanted to highlight upcoming opportunities where the school board will receive more in-depth information on some of the most salient components of our priorities, including an update on work-based learning initiatives and future-ready students on March 8th, an equity update on March 22nd, and of course, an end-of-year update on Compass of 2025 at your July retreat. I thank you for your time. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Bannicky. That was jam-packed.
Always, right?
So
Like, yeah.
we'll give it a time check here. We'll see if there's enough questions remaining, if members want to just follow up afterwards, after today with you, or if they want to continue this session of the workshop at the end of the formal meeting, because we still have one remaining topic already that we haven't gotten to. But we'll start with Mrs. Manning and Mrs. Melnick.
Yeah, just a quick question on slide 11, the college career and civic readiness.
Yes.
What tool is used to determine that?
It's one of four. They have to meet one of four requirements. So you have like 4 years to look back for a student by the time they're graduating to see if they've taken advanced coursework, which only counts AP or IB, or it's a state listing of requirements. So one is they've taken advanced courses that are either AP or an AB course, or they have CTE credentials and are a CTE completer, or they engage in a work-based experience, or they engage in service learning, and the state has provided definitions of what those entail.
Okay, so it doesn't include the college and work readiness test that they take?
No.
Okay. And, you know, I noticed we have a 95% graduation rate, but only 74% college and career readiness percentage. Can you give me, and you might not have it now, but from 2019, a comparison where we were on that?
This is the CCRI is new, so this is the first year we have to provide data for.
Oh, okay, so we don't have a comparison.
And it doesn't kick in for a graduating class until I think the class of 2023. So we're like being proactive in how we're
Gotcha.
looking at it now to make
Okay.
sure that there isn't that gap between the two.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. Melnick.
So I see a lot of, this is really hard work, this Compass. Did I say that right? Compass.
I don't know. I've been told I'm the only one that says it
No, you say it
strangely.
properly,
Okay.
phonetically. So I see a lot of this, but, so I'm happy to see that 61% of our teachers have advanced degrees. That's great to see. Sadly, we're still 114 short, but, you know, we're working on that. Obviously, COVID has impacted us educationally. We're seeing drops in places, including 2 percentage points for college-bound students, perhaps. We have students taking gap years, or seeing a lot of that right now, or perhaps some of our students are saying, you know what, my path may have always been different anyway. We see our teachers stepping up to fill in places where we really need them. And as a sitting board member that spends 4 days a week in a classroom, I can tell you the supports are there. I see them every day in classrooms, the teachers that come in and out for extra supports, and it makes me really, really happy to witness that firsthand. It's not funny. And, but I just think right now, as a governing board, the best thing we can do is support the efforts of the division. I'm really proud of everything that we're doing. I know it's a lot of work, and I know we have a lot of work to make up, but thank you for all of this. This was really meaty. I appreciate it.
So colleagues, do you have any remaining questions now that we will continue with Dr. Bannicky later, or just follow up with her after today?
I'll be here either way, like if you don't want to decide right now. I mean.
And we will be asking at the time of agenda adoption to add the workshop, continuation of workshop as item 17.
Yeah, can I make one more? I won't be able to live
Please.
with myself if I don't make one more comment, and no one said I could. So when I get up and I present about Compass of 2025, one thing I always want to make clear is that I'm representing the work of others who are doing this work. I'm going to cry. Here's why I'm going to cry. This is why I didn't say it at the beginning. When I sat there listening to Project Search, it occurred to me that I get up and I talk about the strategic framework and I get excited. And I knew I was going to get up and I'm going to talk about metrics. And like nobody gets excited about metrics. You know what I mean? And I thought, I hope people understand, like, the point is not, the point is what you saw in Project Search, right? It's the bigger vision. So when I get up and I get excited about the strategic framework. Yes, I love Gantt charts, and yes, I love strategic planning, but the bigger idea is the vision we have of what we want for our students in partnership, with partnerships, in partnering with parents, in having future-ready students. So it's exciting to be involved in the work. And anyway.
Thank you for saying that. And that's, and I'm sure all of our teachers are applauding you right now. And that's the main goal, not to sit up here and complain about, it's the work that's being done by everybody in this division. And I am really, really proud of it. Thank you.
And we all can stand to be reminded that behind every number is a face.
Right.
Okay. So on that note, this workshop is adjourned and we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock.